Gordon, yeah, Sharon Deputy Collins and Sullivan. I didn't realise I was on first, but the Housing Adaptation Grant scheme allocates housing aid for older people, housing aid for people with disability and mobility aid grants. The grants are available when changes need to be made to a home to make it suitable for a person with a physical, sensory or intellectual disability or a mental health difficulty to live in. The grant can help someone make changes and adaptations to their home, for example, by making it wheelchair accessible, extending it to create more space, or adding a ground floor bathroom or a stair lift. The Government recently announced funding for 2019 of £71.25 million nationally for the Housing Adaptation Grants for older people and people with a disability living in private houses. This included an allocation of £1.4 million to Donegal County Council for 2019. However, this funding for two separate grants, and which you did not make clear in your answer to my recent parliamentary question on the issue either. The problem since cuts to funding were made since 2010 during the peak of the recession is that local authorities were running into deficits because the government never matched up the funding required for the grants. Donegal County Council was spending faster than the money was coming in from the government. This put Donegal County Council into a crisis situation, which meant grants were severely restricted and the criteria was changed as a result in order to restrict the number of people who could qualify. Furthermore, this meant that a hierarchy of illnesses emerged for applicants where only those with the most severe of disabilities were eligible, while others had to be adjudicated on. This was all done as a way to manage local government funding rather than effectively managing the needs of people with disabilities. There was money there to be spent accordingly, such as in social housing rents. However, this was not done over the years, and the local authority reduced funding for other grants such as non-essential repairs. The domino effect resulted in the continuous curtailing of funding and other services to maximise the use of limited amount of money available for the Housing Adaptation Grant. And the Council tried to facilitate the same amount of people, but each person ended up getting much less. And this is also a way of trying to satisfy the members and their demands to ensure that the grants would be made available to people that needed them. And I was initially supportive of this bill until I looked at it and closely saw that the bill changes the process by placing additional onus on the applicant and moving the burden of proof away from the local authorities and towards the individual instead. What is currently the case is that the Council would send someone to check the layout of the work of the applicant's home, then send an application to the occupational therapist, who then decides whether the works are required to adequately adapt the home for the individual appellant. Here we have the added complication of the fact that there aren't enough occupational therapists within the HSE, which adds to delays in the application times. And I wonder if the bill is the way to free up the HSE from increased demand by restricting the number of successful applicants by placing the burden on the individual with a disability. It is unclear whether this bill failed to address the burden of proof imbalance that's already there, or possibly that the bill is a way of trying to manipulate the system, but at least the Fianna Fáil are recognising that the system is broken. I can't at this time support the bill as I believe it will bring greater hardship to individuals with disabilities looking for a housing adaptation grant, and what we need is increased funding and a move towards alleviating the burden of proof from applicants and onto local authorities themselves, so that disability supports and local supports in general will be viewed as a human right.